What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another Beta Memoirs. And today, as you can see, we are pushing up. We started out a little rough. It looked like we wanted to sell. Big tech was kind of selling off this morning, but it got its act together. It started turning around. You had some major leaders, especially in the e-commerce space. Your Amazon shop really had big runs today. Your financials and value carried it this morning, but that rotation came back into tech. Apple had a nice rip this morning and then kind of just was dormant for the rest of the day. Same with Tesla. Tesla ripped in the afternoon with Amazon, but everything pulled right back. And the reason for that being is we are waiting on word from Powell on rate raises. Now, we know that a lot of stuff has changed to this point. Powell's essentially and not sticking to his guns at this point. At this point, I think he's getting a lot of pressure from the Senate and everybody else that he needs to be increasing rates or tapering, doing more than what he's doing now because of fear of inflation. And given the uncertainty of the virus, even though a lot of different people have come out and talked about it, data still has to prove this, but even though the new virus is is supposed to be more contagious, but not nearly as deadly as the last strand. So being said, if for whatever reason it does get bad with the virus and there's no tapering done now, it's going to be a nightmare later. So he's been pressured essentially to start doing more and raising rates at a faster pace. But that also being said, it's destroying the market a lot too, because wages aren't they're not up to inflation at this point. And even if he starts to do this, you're going to have a lot of people that are essentially going to be still majorly affected by the pandemic and not going to be able to recover because of the fast rate raises on top of everything. So even though the intentions were good to try to help those that are in need of real with lower rate raises, again, they will be essentially left behind at this point because it's a never winning battle with the way everything is essentially done, because you have to watch inflation rates, and as they are, it's not looking good in the predictions that they have for it. So we're waiting for next week to see what we get from that, and that's what the market was essentially waiting, and why we've had these big dips. Yes, I think the virus played a small piece of this. For some of these sells, I think the initial selling here, because it was hard to break this this floor here, this zone, and so being said, I think that initially broke the straw on the camel's back and knocked us down, and then the worries about the rate raises, a lot of the rate raises and stuff were talked between this time. So we started selling pretty heavily. And I think this is just trying to incorporate what they anticipate for rate raises. But again, being said, even though they try to price it in, it's still, once the news comes out, the market can still dump pretty heavy from that point. Back in 2018, Powell did the same thing around the same time. So being said, nothing is off the table. The market is very strong. You can see the market is very strong. People are ready for the Christmas rally, but Christmas rally really doesn't start till mid-December. And even being said, then you start getting the low volume because you're actually getting into the holiday at that point. So, and then towards like January, you start getting a bigger move at that point. So the market is going to be interesting for the next week. I think for me, well, that's the market in general. I think we could look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin had that crash over the weekend, essentially that mini flash crash over the weekend. One thing I don't like about it is that it broke below the trend line, even though it's still high or low. So technically, this cannot really matter. But if you're following technicals, we're looking for a retest and possibly dive in lower. For Bitcoin, we really don't want it below the 42 mark. I think in my mind, you want to keep it above essentially the 45K mark for it to continue to be bullish, or else you can see Bitcoin probably tumble back down pretty low. Being said, there's also mass adoption, so I don't see it coming way back down. I think the days of 10K Bitcoin are possibly never going to be seen again. It's that nothing's impossible, but I think the 10K Bitcoin is definitely not something that's going to happen. In my mind, I don't think that's going to happen. Again, you can't say never, so we'll have to see. So that being said, the market, Bitcoin pop here, we wanted to see the correlation between Bitcoin and the market in general. So maybe this is why the market recovered so well today, because of the Bitcoin pop. And the reason for that is it hit the 200 EMA on the daily, which is normally good for reversals. So that might actually be a very bullish sign. We could possibly start heading back up. So we would definitely want to keep an eye on that and see where that heads the next it's next 2 weeks, because ultimately I think the market really isn't going to get going until it figures out what Powell's going to do, unless it again priced a good majority of that in, which we've already corrected pretty heavily. But I think right now we're sitting, let's go back to the SPX. I think overall we're still sitting at like a 5% correction from this point. Again, a true correction is at least 10%, and we're about halfway there. So you figure another 10% can put us way down here. Essentially at the 4250 mark is where your 10%'s at, 4260, 4270. So roughly around there. That would be a true correction. And is it possible? I think if something, whatever comes out of FOMC meeting, very well could, because everything is being heavily weighed on what's being said and what's being directed for the year to come. People will have to move money around essentially to combat whatever is going to be said. And then you have the debt ceiling as well, which is something that's next week as well. So there's still a lot to be done from this point. So tomorrow, again, I'm looking for strength. Always, I think Tesla is good. It did hold. Essentially, we held the 1K mark on the daily, which is good to see. This definitely needs to break back above this and hold it. If not, you can see Tesla possibly coming down even more. Tesla's not one that typically comes and retests the 200 very often. Normally, that's a good reversals of 200, but Tesla's not really one of those companies or stocks that come down that far. So we have to see, maybe that this is the last trip below 1K before it starts heading back up. But it did break the wedge. We could be going back up and retesting. Again, you got another bigger wedge here to try to break out of. So you have to see, maybe we might be developing a bigger range of a wedge here going into next earnings is what it could possibly be, but we have to see how every day plays out. From that point, Google's another big one that does very well for earnings. Earnings is still a month away before we even start talking about real earnings, about a month and a half away before we're even talking about the next cycle. So we're going to have these sell-offs. So I talk about after earnings, you kind of want to let it just run because it needs a couple of weeks to die off a little bit. It seems like it's holding here. This seems like the floor is at 2807. Again, with everything going on in the market, this might correct a little bit more, but I want to look at getting in Google as well. Again, I don't want to load too many positions now because I want to see what happens with Powell. We could, like I said, we're only 5%. 5% more would really correct us even more. ASML, I played this today. I'm actually looking for this to do a little bit more here. I broke the wedge, looking for the retest on the hourly. Wanted it closer to the 200. This may be all we get. Again, it really depends on tomorrow. I don't know if we're going to do a full reversal tomorrow or not. Again, with this market, it's very much a possibility. Things are very strong. So Facebook Monster Day, one to keep on watch tomorrow. I want to try to get a retest on this 315 tomorrow, 314 essentially. Look for a retest on this. This has been beaten down so much. I've been talking about this for a while about how it needs to try to recover, but we're sitting around the 300, close to 300. We essentially bounced off the monthly support here, And so this is a good one to possibly keep going. It may be a retest. Again, you don't want it to break back below that 315. I think in my mind, then it's going to consolidate more because it's been doing a lot of chop lately. So you definitely want to be careful with that one. The best strength, I think, is going to be in e-commerce moving forward. Santa rally. So a lot of expectations is essentially going in for spending and obviously Christmas gifts and everything. So I think Shopify is going to be one of those big ones that, as I'm talking here, Bitcoin is starting to push up. So Shop is another big one tomorrow. I want to look if it breaks this 1422 tomorrow and holds above that. I did play this morning. I want to play it again tomorrow. They want to hold anything overnight because they didn't like the selling after the close. So I want to see how this plays out tomorrow. And then essentially my target would be at 1511 as long as it holds 1429. Amazon had a massive day too, but it hit right into support. It hit the 50 and bounced right off of that. For this to continue higher, it needs to break above this 34.65. Then you got another, although essentially old support that has become resistance now. So we definitely want to break back through this. Understand it could be really choppy getting back up through all this stuff, especially with all the news and stuff. We could get one bad news event with rates or with the variance, and this thing could smack back down to the 200. For a while it was doing that until earnings, and then it kind of popped back out of it. So just be mindful of that. But e-commerce, I think, is a good play. You have ones like SC, which has been really bottoming out here, holding this 243 mark. This could be a good strong one I want to look at tomorrow. Etsy is another one that's finally correcting back down. It's almost back down to the 200. If we can get this thing down to 212, around the 211 mark would be really good. As close as you can get it to the 200 moving average on the daily would be great. But we definitely have to see how that goes. You got your firm. That's also, you got a lot of these stocks have been really beaten down over this past 2 weeks or so. So these ones could be good one, nice little pickups for moving forward, especially if we start getting a rally. You can pick up some really good ones here. Like I said, ASML is another big one I really like. UPST is another big one I liked. I almost picked it up this morning, but I missed it. Playing playing ASML. So if this does hold 165 tomorrow, I want to get back in this and try to play this range. It's below the 200 daily. It's normally a good point to start buying if you're long-term investing or long-term swinging. This is one that I think has great potential still moving forward. So I want to look at this one next coming days. But I think that's pretty much it. The chips and NVIDIA. I'm not playing NVIDIA because I'm mainly playing ASML. I use that as opposed for the semis and everything. But everything did break and did retest. So I think these can continue up even more. So something to keep a mind on. Just watch your chips. They're all breaking out of wedges here. MU is also another one I was looking at about possibly getting in. So break the wedge. You definitely don't want to break back below the 80 point mark. If it is, then you might as well cut that one because it's definitely a broke pattern from that point. But I think the chips, e-commerce are going to be your plays in the next coming days. So if you have made it this far, remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so. Till next time, I'll see you guys later.